So.
Right, Inspector, ready to carry on.
So.
Well done, thank you. Yes, Mr. Millett.
Inspector, thank you for coming back to us. I just want to revisit one topic we covered just before the break, if I can, and that's the assignment of PC Neve to assist PC Jacobs. PC Neve has given us a statement, and he says he joined Alice Jacobs about 3:30. And I think you said to us before that when you found out that he had joined her, that it was his idea to do so. Is that right?
I didn't assign him, he was assigned. I suspected he did it himself.
Right. Okay. Did you ever find out whether he had actually been assigned by somebody more senior?
No, but then I didn't ask either, I just accepted it.
Fair enough. And it is a hindsight question. Do you think, looking back on it, that this cover to deal with FSG was too little too late?
As I wasn't there when the information was being passed, it's a very difficult question to answer. If Alice felt she needed the help and PC Neve felt he should help, then maybe it should have been put in earlier. But without having been there and understanding how difficult or taxing the actual mechanism of delivering the information was, it's difficult to say.
Now, you have told us, and we can see actually from the body-worn footage, that one of your primary priorities was establishing a reliable and safe police cordon.
Yes.
At any time in the night, this is a general question, during your establishment and oversight of those police cordons, did you see the police cordons preventing family members and friends passing fire survival guidance messages or messages about trapped individuals within the tower to the command unit?
Sorry, can you rephrase that?
Did you ever, let me put it a different way, did you ever see or get the sense that the police cordon was operating in such a way that individual family and friends of people trapped in the tower was stopping messages coming through the cordon to the command unit?
We're preventing messages?
Yes.
No, I didn't see anything being prevented. The closest that came was when two gentlemen had got through the cordon and were about to come in to the command unit, and I turned them round and sent them back to the cordon. But in terms of anyone else actually preventing, no.
Right. And when they did turn up at the command unit, do you recall taking information about trapped residents from them and passing it to those in the command unit?
No, I didn't. I didn't tell them I'd done it. I didn't make them any promises. I turned them round and sent them back to the cordons where that could be done.
Right. Now, we saw in the footage before the break, at items or clip 6, some communications about flat 83. Do you remember
Yes.
seeing the clip? I'm not going to play it to you again. Do you remember any update about flat 83 over the radio, a general communication over the radio, to the effect that flat 83 had been checked at any time?
What, after that signature we saw?
Yes.
I can't remember.
You can't remember. And if there had been an update from the LFB about checking a particular flat, how would that, to your expectation, have been communicated if the Met were involved in that communication? How would the update have come through?
So are you asking how the fire brigade would tell us that 80
Yes,
flat 80 had been checked?
Had been checked.
Well, it would have gone through, it would either be the control room, through the formal channels, or straight to Alice on the at the command unit.
Right. Now, can I turn to the topic of stay put and the revocation of the stay put advice? We use the expression stay put advice as a shorthand, which may not be entirely accurate, Inspector, but when I say the stay put advice, what I mean is the advice generally given by LFB operators to callers saying, stay in your flat, you will be rescued. When you took Silver Command, did you discover what advice LFB were giving to people who were ringing in on 999 calls?
I knew quite early on that that was the advice. I can't remember a specific time upon my arrival that I was told that is the advice, but I did know very early on.
Do you remember how you knew?
No, as I say, I knew, but I can't tell you that a particular person said to me, this is the advice.
So far as you could see or hear or know, did your officers know that was the advice?
Yes, because the main way of understanding that they knew was that they were asking me, is this the advice?
And do you recall specific instances of being asked by your officers, what is the advice?
I know that it happened. I can't tell you at this particular time in this particular location.
Right. And when you were asked that question by officers, and I know it's difficult to remember specifics, was it because they had residents on the other end of the phone, or they had a family member or friend next to them?
Both those scenarios, any number of scenarios. The volume of calls, well, not calls, the amount of information coming from the cordon lines was, I can't say overwhelming, but there was a lot of desperate people.
And had you had any communication with the LFB itself about that advice, or can you not remember?
What, in terms of who told me?
Yes. Who and when?
No, I said who had told me and when they told me. The only time we really went into detail was at the command meeting with Mr. Rowe, and he explained why that was the advice.
Now, in your third witness statement, if we could please go to that, at page 10, you describe the change in stay put advice under the heading on that page, and you cover it to the rest of the page and over the top of the page onto page 11. And you say that having viewed your BWV recording, or body-worn video recording, of my actions on the night, and I've read my initial statement provided soon after the events, I'm now aware, you say, that the message about the change in stay put advice had been received from the LFB by METCC at 0308 hours, before it was transmitted out across the radio by METCC to all police officers at 0310 hours. I do not now have a positive recollection of hearing the METCC message. I just want to ask you a little bit about that. First of all, can I ask you please to go to CAD 482, so MET 000023294, and go please to page 20. And we can see on that page, just below halfway down, at the time mark of 030827, LFB ... Our instructions to people that are still inside the flats are to escape by any means necessary. Do you see that?
Yeah.
Just help me. It says at the start, LFB. Who is communicating that message to METCC?
That's the fire brigade. As to who it came from, I couldn't tell you.
Right. Or can you tell me any more about the means by which the LFB communicated that to METCC?
Sorry, I can't.
All right. Now, that message, as you can see, recorded there by the METCC operator, did that go out by radio to all officers at the scene?
It did go out a short time later. I think it was, if you look at my statement, I give the time.
You do. And I just want to know what the difference is between these two. If I can ask you please to turn the page to page 21, you can see that the message is repeated in similar terms, not identical, 31056, just about a quarter of the way down the page. Do you see? 31056, it says, LFB, anyone who is in the flats to get out and escape by any means, do not stay inside flats. Now, is that the same kind of message transmitted
Yes.
by LFB to the METCC, or is that recording the transmission of the earlier message out to officers?
As far as I can see, this is again information coming from the LFB going to the control room.
Right.
Whether it went, I don't think. Sorry, just look at the times. About that time, the operator did put out over the AM. The airwaves that the advice had changed and people would self-evacuate.
Right. Now, you said in your statement that you don't have a positive recollection of hearing the METCC message. Let's see if we can pick it up in your BWV, your body-worn video. And this is clip 6 at INQ 50517. with an adjusted time of 3:10:10, and it runs from 3:10:10 to 3:10:27, if we can just have that. There are two clips within this topic. If we could just play that one, please, to start with.
Good. We've been speaking to LFB on ES3 with regards to residents still in the block. Their advice is if there's anyone...
Where are you going?
Someone who's still in the flat is to investigate or get out by any other means they can.
Right, yeah, but...
Right, now, I think we can both see what's going on that, in that clip. We can hear you, we can see what you're doing. We can also hear the radio message coming in, and halfway through it, you are dealing with what's happening in front of you on the ground. Going back to the radio message and reviewing the clip, is that the radio message?
Yes.
Broadcasting to all officers the change in advice?
Yes.
Right. Now, you didn't hear it at the time, clearly, as you've said in your statement, and we can see why.
Well, I didn't say I didn't hear it. I have no positive recollection of...
You're quite right.
But
you're quite right.
I had it right next to it. I couldn't have done any more to hear it. I know it's a bit of a bad answer, but it's the best I can give you, I'm afraid.
You're quite right. But in terms of the nature of the broadcast, we can see you, we can hear it being broadcast over your handheld radio. Was that message broadcast to all officers at the incident ground
Yes.
at that moment?
Yes.
And who was broadcasting it?
That was the control room.
Right. Now, there's also a clip, clip 7, which is INQ 523, which runs from an adjusted time of 03:14:25 to 03:14:32. So, very short clip. We can just have that again.
Yeah. I'd say personal safety comes first. Yeah, safety first.
So we're going to play that again because it's quite hard to hear what's going on the radio. But if we can listen out for what's being broadcast over your radio, we may be able to pick that up. If we can just have that again, please.
Yeah. I'd say personal safety comes first. Yeah, safety first.
Not as clear. Can you help us with what's being said over the radio?
No, not at all.
And no more than we can. Okay. And again, assuming that one can hear it clearly and that was a direct message about persons who were trapped in the building, again, would that have been heard by all the officers at the
Yes.
incident ground? Right. Do you know, when it's, we can go back to the CAD, do you know whether the message came from the LFB's control room originally or from someone on the incident ground?
I don't know.
You don't know. Given that you were at the scene, is the information that anyone who was in the flats should be told to get out and escape by any means and do not stay in the flats, is that advice something you would have expected to have been told directly by LFB at the incident ground, rather than hearing it by radio from your own control room?
I would rather it got out to the people that could make a difference before some sort of deference to rank. So I wouldn't expect anyone not to pass that advice just because they wanted to talk to the Silver Commander. The most important thing is get that message out.
Yes, I see. So more important to get the message spread across all officers rather than just talking to you.
Yes, because all I would do is tell them to do what they did.
Yeah. Now, you then go on to say, we can go back to page 10 of your third witness statement. You say that at 3:20, this is just below halfway down the first paragraph on page 10, you say, I do not remember a feeling of surprise when, at the 3:20 hours TCM, the LFB lead explained the reasons behind the decision. You see it, perhaps we should just highlight it there. It's about 2/3 of the way through that block of text. As far as you recall, Inspector, was that the first time that you remember being told directly about the change in stay put advice?
That's the first good memory I have of it.
At that moment when you heard that and have a good memory, as you say, of that, Do you remember whether you considered sending that message out to all of your police officers so that they knew the most up-to-date advice from the LFB?
No, it didn't cross my mind to do that, but having seen the body-worn video and having it right next to my ear, then that work had already taken place. Had I thought that this was critical information that had not been passed, then that would have been the first thing to have done.
Well, let me try this. When you do get the information at 3:20 during the TCM that the advice is to evacuate, do you remember thinking that's the first time I've heard that, or
no.
You don't remember thinking that?
No.
Okay.
That if I'd that because I mean it's a significant moment, and that's where the surprise, you know, or some sort of there would have been an impact.
Yes, I see.
But there was no impact.
Yeah. So you're going on the fact that you didn't feel surprised about hearing that news led you to think at that stage that you'd already discovered it. Right, I see. And then if we can just see the CAD summary. This is a new document I haven't shown you. This is MET 000-23293, which is a different document. I should just, I think, perhaps get you to explain what it is first of all. We've called it a CAD or CAD summary. Could you just explain what this is?
It looks like it's information taken from the CAD that's been lifted directly onto a Word document and cobbled together.
Right, okay. And it's got some things on here which are not in CAD 482. But can I ask you to look at pages 16 and 17? Go to the bottom of page 16 first of all. And you can see it says there, 326, 452 WW, female 11th floor, flat 82, she's in the far bedroom. And then at 32702, BS, flat 193, trapped with family, CAD 951, advised to escape by all means. In general terms, are these the kinds of advice that you would by this time expect to have been passed? Was this the kind of advice that by this time you would expect to have been passed?
Well, that's what I could hear being passed.
Right.
But as you've just seen on the body one, it was an incredibly busy night. There was being pulled from pillar to post, so you couldn't, it's not like you were standing there just listening to your radio constantly. It was constantly briefing people arriving, being told of a new problem, making a decision, and all of that, unfortunately, means you can't listen to absolutely everything.
Sure. Before you went into the TCM at 3:20, do you have any recollection of getting any message or any impression of any message that advice was being given by LFB or Met control rooms to stay put?
Nothing that raised concern.
Right. Now, going back to your statement, if you could please, at page 10, where we were before, you say, in the second paragraph on that page, under the heading, the change in stay put advice, the TCM finished at 0:33 hours, and immediately on stepping from the command unit, I was called upon to deal with decisions around the evacuation of buildings, providing long shields to support LFB and the public, providing respite centres. Now, just pausing there, well, let me continue, actually. You say, just pausing there, do you remember at that stage making any communication with any of your officers about the stay put advice?
No, my next involvement with the stay put advice was a short time after then, I suppose,
right,
when I did hear some message being passed, and the content of the message wasn't what I was expecting. It didn't sound as if people had really taken on board the information.
Right. Well, let's just take this slowly. Just looking a little bit further down the paragraph, you say, at about 03:53 hours, I got the impression that not all the officers had heard or understood the message about the change in stay put advice. I got that impression from hearing a rapid series of radio transmissions detailing the location of trapped residents, which made me believe that the 03 10 hours communication was not necessarily being acted on. Now, that would have been after the TCM had finished.
Yes.
Is that right? Right. Perhaps we should just look at another clip of the body-worn footage, and this one is INQ 50527. It's clip 9. And this has an adjusted time of 03:53:05 to 03:56:20. And I should just give a trigger warning before it comes up. And this does, again, this shows images of the tower on fire. So again, I ought just to make sure that people have a fair opportunity to either leave this room or remove themselves from the live stream. And I think that's probably enough time. If we can just play that.
Colin Republic, so they've got this focus down on the 8th floor.
Still funny.
There's a PC just phoned, he's talking to somebody on the 8th floor.
Talking to somebody on the 8th floor.
It was 8th floor, room 81.
Should we tell them that the
No,
advice from the fire brigade is to self-evacuate?
Well, that's what they said, yeah.
Yeah, should I get in there? Yeah.
To Mother and Dora.
No one's coming from.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all saved. 2852.
Let me just go. I'm going to make a call on that. I'm going to speak to him. If that's the instruction they're giving to everyone, then that's the instruction we'll give.
MP Bravo 01.
01, go ahead.
Just walked out of a silver meeting with directions for officers that are getting these information from within the building. Stand by, we're just confirming direction with LFB, but I'll be able to give you some direction in a minute.
Got 01, that's all safe. We'll await your update. GTF, +13. +13, go ahead.
Good morning, duty officer at Kensington.
Yeah, we've come on in the rooftop of the adjacent
Speaking.
blank estate. We've got a few people on the roof. The blocks of flats are about number 501 to 542, which is junction of Gravelly Road and Whitchurch.
Right, are you aware of what's happening at Grenfell Tower in Notting Hill?
They're not making any attempt to get towards the fire, but they are standing there watching over.
Yeah, you're looking at 30 floors, multiple casualties. It's been declared a major incident about 3 miles away or something away. We got the world here. In your experience, I don't know what work the hat officers can do.
Yeah, that's all safe.
No, it was on the 3rd floor and it's just spread up. I mean, it could be, but at the moment we've got no evidence and no suggestion it's anything nefarious other than a calamity. And in any case, we're not going anywhere near this. LFB are not going to be putting this out. It's going to burn itself out.
GT Golf. Yeah, go ahead, Andrew. Right, this needs to be recorded accurately, very important. From the Commissioner of the London Fire Brigade, the advice to anyone calling police is that they should try and self-evacuate. There is no guarantee the LFB will be
One second, Sergeant. I'll get Gold here now. I don't think there's any point in you being here, but hold on.
Did you understand that, over? Yeah, Gold, that was all safe, and I was typed on the character vacant. Thank you. Clearly that's a significant decision based on the safety of the building and the likelihood of collapse. For anyone that's phoning up, we will need to ask them to try and self-evacuate. Over.
Do you want the hat car, Hugo?
Yeah, that is all safe.
Yeah? Okay. That's a yes from the detective superintendent that's down here.
This end.
Let's take a few minutes.
No, it's okay.
Okay. Now, just a few questions that come out of that clip. First of all, the person broadcasting that message, is that Gold Command Warnit, that Superintendent Warnit that we can hear? It is. Now, we can hear him say that it's a significant decision. What did that mean to you?
It was a significant moment in the night. It is what it is. It's
Significant in respect. In what respect?
that a lot of people weren't going to get out.
Right. Was that the first time that you realised that?
But when he made that message, no.
Was that message a direct order to all officers?
Yes, I think it's important that he made that call based on a feeling I had. I had nothing to say that early messages hadn't got through. It was just a feeling I had. And quite often when you are at significant incidents, it's the voice you understand, you know, and you trust coming over the radio that actually gets through to you. So it's not so much they need to know the message in general, it needs to come from the commanders on the scene. It needs to come from whoever's leading, because that has more impact.
Yeah.
And it resulted in that.
Now, you came from a feeling you had. Was that feeling prompted by hearing any specific advice to stay put, which continued after your TCM? Or?
I don't. Again, it wasn't a device to stay put. It was just constables. I think there were 3, and they passed a message. There was the reference to that person on the 8th floor. I think just before then there were people trapped on a stairwell, a family, and there was another flat. And I don't know. It is, and it's only after years and years of being on the street listening to the radio, you think that it should have been. They're in the stairwell, advice has been passed, or they're trying to get out of the flat, they're coming down. Something more than just this is where they are, because the this is where they are wasn't enough.
Was this... Sorry, do you want to finish?
No, please carry on.
Was this feeling you had, which led to that message being broadcast, something which had originated in your doubt that you had heard the first broadcast back at 3:06?
No, it was just those messages.
3:08
It was
or
just...
3:10.
It must have been quite not quiet, but I was able to listen to the radio more closely, hear these messages, and just didn't feel right.
Right. Now, can I ask you to look at MET 00023293, the CAD summary, not CAD 482, the CAD summary, MET 00023293, at page 21. And we can see 2/3 of the way down that page that it says at 03:58:03, gold. From the Commissioner of the London Fire Brigade, the advice from the LFB is to try and self-evacuate. There is no guarantee that the LFB will be able to go in and evacuate people due to the safety of the building and POS collapse. Is that the message which Superintendent Warnick caused to be broadcast just after your discussion we can see in the clip at about 03:56?
Yes, and he did it very well. When that went out, and I was standing where I was standing, as you could see the building, and what you can't see through my body worn is it sits here, because my chest sticks out. The lens is angled up, so you can't see what's at ground level. And ground level, that green area was just full of broken firefighters. You couldn't see the LAS working on people in the corners. You couldn't see the bodies. But when that came out, we'd lost.
And did that have a visible effect on your colleagues?
Yeah. Well, everyone sort of a bit more slumped. People looked. Because you knew what it was. It was a death sentence. You just knew they were... And you could see them. Sorry. You could still see them. Just couldn't go.
Shall I sit down for a minute?
Nope, thank you.
Did you, in that moment, get any sense that officers on the incident ground had not been fully or formally advised that the advice had changed and the occupants...
Sorry, I was just thinking about something completely different. You'll have to start again.
That's quite all right. Do you want to just take a moment?
No, it's okay.
Would you like to have a break? We can take a break if you want.
No, it's okay.
Let me just try the question a different way. At that time, did you, when this message went out, did you, from what you could see, perhaps what we can't see, did you get any sense that your officers who were there had not been fully or formally advised that the advice was to evacuate at all costs?
It was more a case of it was rammed home quite brutally, but it was required.
In this message here, in this CAD summary, we can see that it looks as if this message had come from Gold, that's Superintendent Warnett.
Yes.
But it originated from the Commissioner of the London Fire Brigade, Danny Cotton. Do you know do you know anything about that?
Only that when I got the impression that we needed to reinforce the message, and I said to Mr. Warnett, shall we tell them? As in, shall we tell them? He wanted to go and speak to the LFB, just to make sure. Again, it's such a significant moment. As you saw him in a few seconds. In fact, you heard on the radio before I saw him again.
Yeah. Now, I want to show you a document and ask you one or two questions along the same kind of lines, but looking at this document particularly. It's MET 000023576. And this is, I should just tell you what it is. It's the note of the debrief of the initial police response with ERPTA. Could you just explain to us what ERPTA is?
ERPT stands for Emergency Response Policing Team.
Right.
So those were the initial people that turned up for a night duty at 10 o'clock the following night, the previous night.
Now, this meeting took place, I think, you can see, foot of the page, well, no, at the end, in fact, we can't see it from the document. Well, we can see it in the third part of it. It says, overview. This document comprises the debriefing of ERPTA on Saturday, the 17th of June, 2017, in Kensington Police Station Parade Room. Do you remember this meeting?
Yes.
Okay. And we can see who the attendees were at the top of the page, and the topics that are covered in it. That's the overview. You can see that, and you, 4 lines down in that paragraph, say that you led the debrief highlighting cordons, road closures, building evacuations, premises, emergency services, and individual officer feedback on their roles. This document sets out all mentioned above, and then you go through it. Under building evacuations, we can see that that covers not the tower itself, but Testerton Walk, Barrington Walk, and Treadgold House. Now, I want to ask you something about page 2, if we turn to that, please, under the heading Emergency Services. And the first bullet point there, if we can highlight that, is LFB provided advice for residents to remain in their flats. And then at 0300 hours, LFB advised that they would not be able to extinguish the fire. At approximately 0330 hours, LFB advised that they could no longer enter the building, and the advice to trapped individuals was to try to self-evacuate. Now, first of all, that time of 3 o'clock a.m., LFB advised they wouldn't be able to extinguish the fire. Do you remember who said that at this meeting?
No, and you can't put much credence on these timings. This was a room of... I'm amazed they turned up for work, quite frankly. They all did turn up for work. And we were initially told we had an hour to do our statements and then go back to work, but that wasn't appropriate. So we all got together and we just talked through the night. So these timings are just conversation. There was no reference to the CAD. There was no looking at body worn. It was an exercise in helping everyone piece the night together, because after we went home in the morning, we were into our rest days, so we had the next 3 days off. So there was no getting together, and this was the first chance we could sit down and talk about what had happened, because we left the tower piecemeal. And every time you turned on the television, listened to a radio, got on a train, it was just this all the time. So everyone had their demons, and this was an attempt to try and put those demons to rest by understanding where their actions through the night fitted into the puzzle. So, yeah. It was... Don't pin your hopes on that 0300 hours and 0330.
No, I understand. Well, let's just see how far we can get with it. Is it fair to say that this 3:30 timing would actually coincide with your evidence in your third witness statement, that you and Superintendent Warnett registered the advice had been changed at the tactical coordination meeting at 3:20 or just after that?
Well, it would have been, that's the, not so much registered, but that would be the formal time where in the part, as part of the command meeting that information was passed.
Did anybody at this meeting say, do you remember, well, actually, we heard the radio messages at 3:08 and 3:10, which we can see recorded in CAD 482.
It wasn't in that much detail.
And we knew the advice had been changed earlier.
It was nowhere near that, and it wasn't. We were talking about carrying bodies. We were talking about seeing people jumping from the building. We were talking about putting people in a morgue. We were talking about stopping loved ones going to try and save their dears. We weren't talking about 0308, I heard a message.
Do you know why this record of this debrief doesn't record the decision by Superintendent Warnett to tell all PCs at 0356 that the advice had changed and that occupants should now do their best to evacuate?
Because it wasn't designed to capture that information. It was designed to record the fact that we did all get together and we tried to muddle through.
You referred earlier on to the evidence which we saw, where Superintendent Warnett, says that this was a significant decision, and you've described very graphically for us why that was. I just want to get a feel for why this document doesn't record that, given its significance.
Because, as I say, it was just a general overview. I mean, it's just basically recording the fact that the decision, the advice changed. It's not meant to be in that detail. It was meant to, 18 people trying to put their lives back together, which sounds awful in the context as people had it far worse than us.
Well, bear with me for a few more questions on this. Are you aware of any of the police officers present at this meeting telling you or indicating to you that they heard the stay put advice change before 3:30?
No, and I didn't ask them.
And what about after 3:30?
No, it wasn't part of this. We really weren't hinging upon that.
Right. So do we take it from that to the best of your recollection, none of the attendees at this meeting said that the first time they heard that the advice had been changed was after the message at 3:58, which we've seen?
No, but as I say, we didn't go into that much detail. It was a case of, Mark, what did you do? Well, I did this. Thank you very much. Next year, what did you do? And then someone would prop up and say, well, that ties in with what I did, and they were able to piece it together. As part of this process, probably can't mention a name, but one of the constables said that he had helped a mother and child out of the tower, and he had the child's name, and they went off to hospital alive, and it was a distinctive name, and then someone at the back of the room was able to point out that he had spoken to the father, and the father, who had been there as well, he thought that his children were dead and his wife was dead. Was able to be, they did manage to marry it up through the sea and say, no, they're alive, they're in hospital. I don't know which hospital, but they're in hospital. Now, the PC at the front didn't know that the PC in the back had been able to do that. And that's the value of this meeting, not at 3:08 a particular message was sent.
Now, I understand that. If I can ask you to look at page 5, we've got the individual contribution to the meeting, as with all those PCs who attended, who gave their contributions. We've got the contribution of PC Rig 192BS, and you can see them just below the middle of the page that he or she, is PC Rig a male or female?
Male.
He says that he assisted with cordons and family members trapped inside over the phone. Did he say anything, do you remember, about what advice he was giving to family members trapped inside?
No.
Or what time he was having these calls?
No.
Okay.
And it wouldn't have been right to dig at that point.
Okay. I'm going to move to a different topic. Plans of the building. So, I hope.
Of course, it's a natural flow, isn't it? That. Sorry.
Yes, well, it's I hope slightly less troubling for you. Do you remember when you first heard a request for building plans for this building?
It was in one of the early command meetings from Mr. Rowe to the local authority.
Right. Well, let's just take this in stages. Can I ask you to go first to paragraph 11 of your third witness statement? And go to the very foot of the page. You say there, so this is MET 000, page 11, MET 000 23284, page 11. Liaison with other agencies. Foot of the page you say, I was aware from the TCMs that the LFB had been trying to get plans of the tower from the council and that they needed up-to-date information about who the residents of the tower were and how many residents there were. I believe that they liaised with Nick Layton about this. Now, first of all, why did you believe that they were liaising with Nick Layton?
Because he was in the meeting.
Right. Now, I'm now going to show you a little bit of the body-worn footage of the tactical coordination meeting that took place at 7:13 a.m. and that shows a discussion about plans. This is INQ 518. This is all within the command unit, and I don't think there's a need for a trigger warning, Mr. Chairman, for this. This is INQ quintuple 0518, and the adjusted time is 07:29:45, and it runs to 07:30:50. It's clip 10. Let's just look at it, please.
Can I just confirm as well? I know, and we have been asking this for a very long time. Have they been given plans?
I haven't got any plans. I've
So
got
we've
what
asked
I've got.
repeatedly back through local authority. You know, I think this.
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, that the guy from the TMO, the MD from the TMO, has got plans on his phone, and he was looking to ping them through to somebody. So,
For what it's worth, I've got a picture from the BA and control of the layout of a standard floor, but also we know which
Really,
numbers the flats
sending it
are.
on a phone is no good for me. So, and I hate to say this, and please don't record this in the minutes, but having experienced the back end of the Lackenau inquiry, having been in charge of other major incidents, I'm telling you now that the fact you have not been able to get me a set of plans, actually as a set of plans, is a major deficiency and will be highlighted. So do your best to get someone else within the council to get those set of plans. If it comes back to this unit, we'll get it to the right people, because we have been asked for it.
Now, first of all, does this assist you in your recollection as to when you heard the LFB requesting plans?
Yes, they'd asked before that point.
Right. Now, as to that, first of all, how long do you think before this meeting did you understand that the LFP was after plans?
Right from the word go, I think.
Right. And did you monitor or keep up to speed with what was happening with the process of getting plans?
No, not compared to what I was dealing with on the outside.
Did you know who the individual was within that meeting speaking for RBKC or indeed the TMO at that stage?
I thought it was Nick Layton, but you've asked me that question, so I'm guessing it wasn't.
Right. Okay. Have you heard of a gentleman called Mike Rumble?
I have now.
Right, but okay. Does that trigger a recollection as to who it was who was speaking in that meeting?
No.
Right. Were you ever aware, well, have you ever heard of something called a premises information box?
No.
Right, okay. Can I just ask you a question or two about a dangerous structure engineer? Did you have any dealings on the night with a dangerous structure engineer?
No, but I am aware that information was, advice was given to the LFB that the building wasn't going to cool down. I can't speak again, sorry.
Take a moment.
I don't know how that building is still standing to this day. It should have come down. We should have all been dead. I have absolutely no idea how it didn't. You've seen the body warmer. There's an awful lot more than what you've seen, and it doesn't give or doesn't do justice to what it was like there. The sounds were like a cliff coming down. I grew up on the coast, and it was exactly like a cliff face coming down when the debris fell. And the little pops you hear on the camera, they were explosions. How that building is still there, I have no idea. So I was relieved, very relieved, when Mr. Rose said that the structural engineers say it's not going to come down. But I would have been more relieved had that structural engineer been standing next to me. Yes.
Do you know who it was? Do you know his name? Did you have any dealings with the borough surveyor on the night?
No.
Now, if you go to CAD 482, please. Same topic, just staying with it just for one or two more questions. CAD 482, at page 27. We have an entry at 4:49. I'm so sorry, I put you in the wrong document. It's the CAD summary. My mistake. MET 000232393. Page 27. And at the top of that page, MET 000232393. Page 27. We can see that you get a message, or there is a message broadcast by 260 BS, LFB, saying dangerous construction engineer is at a cordon and not sure which one. And this is at 04:49:35, top of the page.
Yep.
What is or who is 260 BS?
That would have been a constable on the cordons.
I see. You don't know who?
Off the top of my head, no.
Right. And LFB saying dangerous construction engineer is at cordon and not sure which one. Do you remember hearing that message?
No, but that would probably have been that the LFB would have called the engineer who would have attended the cordons, and then he's phoned the LFB and said, I'm here.
I see. So not sure which one is a reference to the cordon, is it?
Yeah.
Rather than the engineer?
Yeah.
Now, going back to the start of your involvement, I want to ask you about your communications with RBKC. And you said, I think early on in your evidence, that you used your personal radio to ask or to talk to RBKC.
I didn't talk to them, but I asked one of my colleagues to talk to them.
Right. Can I then take you back to CAD 482? So not the CAD summary, but CAD 482, and turn please to page 6. And you can see there that 1:29:39 is the time mark. At that time, and we've seen this before, you ask, or you say, send a message to BS2N to contact the local authorities. They will need to rehouse residents from this building. Did you follow that message or that idea up after this time?
Only through the meetings and seeing the Lalo who was mostly stationed outside the command unit.
Right.
And as and when there was requests for where are we putting people on the radio, then I'd speak to the lady where possible.
And then we looked at this morning, at page 11 of the of CAD 482, just above the bottom of the page, at 210.02, we can see it says TWAP KNC Council informed they'll be contacting their duty officer who will liaise with BSC direct. Council have set up a dedicated op named Erin for any further poll contact. First of all, was this before or was this after you'd made initial contact with Nick Layton?
I couldn't tell you.
Right. Did you ever have contact with someone called Erin?
No.
Right. Do you know whether your officers did?
I don't know.
Right. Now, on page 8 of your statement, your third statement, you say you deal with the topic of use of the leisure centre as a mortuary, and you say this at the start of that paragraph: it was clear that there was going to be a large loss of life and that bodies would be recovered from the tower. Superintendent Warnett wanted forensic tents to be used to cover the dead in the first instance. I believe we had 5 of these at the scene, and this would not be enough. Other than the LFB command unit, we did not have a command centre for the police or ambulance service at the scene. I had requested that the RBKC open up a building for us, but that had not happened. Now, first of all, when was the first request that you made of RBKC to open up the building, a building, so that you could use it as a mortuary? Do you remember?
Specifically as a mortuary?
Yes.
I can't remember if I said specifically as a mortuary. I can remember saying that we need that building, pointing to the sports centre. Right.
Let's take it in stages. Do you remember when you said that?
I can't give you a time, but it was still dark.
Right. Okay. Well, we can. Do you have a recollection of for what purpose you said I need that building?
Because it had everything we were going to need. We were obviously going to have a lot of bodies.
Right.
Where we needed light, we needed power, I needed to set up an effective, I can't say command, but an effective command centre for those that would come after me. And it just made sense to use that. Big, open space, everything we needed in there. Just a sensible thing to do.
I'm going to show you one more clip, which might assist. And this is BWV INQ 500524 with a time mark of adjusted 02:45:55, and it runs to an adjusted time of 02:47:50. This is clip 11, and I just want to. I don't think a trigger warning is needed for this, because there are no pictures of fire, but it's the incident ground outside. Right. If I can just have that played, please.
Sorry. Yeah, can we get it open and then we can start? We've been calling them, they've promised us the world. Okay. That would just be ideal staging. It's been processed and just smash the door.
621 Bravo Sierra, go ahead if you're. Can we get more use of my location now? There's still traffic going and there are people going on the street, so I need more use as soon as possible, please. Just confirm your exact location, you Bowmore Road if you're. Let control, turn that back. 295 stand by 1621, receiving. Last Latimer Road tube station. Latimer Road, received, if you're. Control, that's exactly where he is.
We're going to run out of batteries soon.
From a battery.
You got a spare one? Sure.
We are at Silchester Road Junction and Lancaster Road.
Can I give you guys a... Sorry, you, DSDI?
This is a chap from the council.
I'm the local leader.
Lovely job. Can you get the academy open at
I've
all?
got colleagues working on opening up a rest centre already.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
We've got buses coming to take people to wherever you are, just a house when they come off. Excellent news.
How many people are looking at?
Hundreds. Right. Can you just wait here then, so I know where you are? What's your name again, sorry?
Nick Layton.
Nick. Oh, I spoke to you the other day.
Quite possibly.
Yeah.
Was he on the...
Yeah, the stabbing night.
We had 2
Yeah.
buses away from Shepherd's Bush, not too far away in River.
Right, that was Nick Layton. We can see you being introduced to.
Thank you.
Do we take it from that was the first time on the night that you saw Nick Layton?
Yes.
So that's at about 2:47 or so. And before that, we saw that you were discussing with an LFB officer breaking down the door. What was that to? What was the door to?
To the leisure centre.
Right, okay.
That sort of conversation had happened through the night with PCs, fire officers asking,
Right.
we need somewhere.
Prior to the arrival of Nick Layton at the scene there, do you know yourself what RBKC were doing to make the leisure centre available to you?
No.
Did the RBKC assist you once Nick Layton was on scene after this discussion?
To get into the leisure centre?
Yes.
No, I had a very similar conversation with Constable Collins as I did with that fire officer. I said to him as well, he asked the same question, I said to him, I'm getting very close, saying just smash the door. I turned round, turned back, and PC Collins had smashed the door. He'd gone in, and he was right to do so.
Was that after this discussion with Nick Layton that we've just seen?
I think so, yeah.
Do you know how long afterwards?
I couldn't tell you. It'll be recorded in the CAD or somewhere, but...
Okay, now... I want to cover a slightly different topic with you. Mr. Chairman, I've got about 10 or 15 minutes more questions. We've been going for just under an hour.
Yes, Fire Inspector.
I could probably, in fact, it's less than that actually. It's about 10 minutes maximum. Might I be able to finish off my questions with the witness?
Well, if the witness is willing for you to do so.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Right. Yes, on you go then.
Right.
Thank you.
The topic I want to cover is the identification of casualties and survivors. Now, we don't need to go back to it. I will if you want me to, but the clip from your BWV at an adjusted time of 02:39, which we saw this morning, is the clip where you are having a discussion with DAC O'Loughlin. Now, we can see it if you like, but he says that the first and biggest thing that the LFB needs is identifying the people and the casualties. We can go back to it, but do you remember that?
Yes.
Okay. Did you appreciate the importance of that function to the LFB's search and rescue operation?
At that time?
At that time, yes.
Again, it's the hard thing about all these questions, all these answers to your questions, where we've moved around, not chronologically, at any given time, the situation was different. I understand what you're saying, and yes, it is going to be essential, but the LFB also said that they had to have a systematic search of the entire building and look into all the flats. So yeah, I understand what you're saying, but when Mr. O'Loughlin, when the LFB gentleman said that, it was a priority. Within 15 minutes, we were looking at the entire building coming down. So it was less of a priority than that and keeping people safe. Mm-hmm. So the answer is yes, but it had to be prioritised in the context of what we were facing.
Do you remember whether you set any systems up in order to perform the function of identifying people who were coming out of the building?
No, it was, unless we'd been there right from the word go and started taking names of people that were coming out right from the word go, we'd have had an understanding of some, but I was more concerned with getting people out, getting them to hospital, and then doing that piece of work behind the front line, as it were.
And what was your understanding of how people coming out of the tower were being identified?
They were taken to the first aid posts, and that would be one of the basic parts of the triage.
Did your officers have any involvement in identification or the process of assisting with identification?
I didn't specifically task anyone to that.
Right. Now, we know that there's a policy provision in the London Resilience document, I call it that as a shorthand, for survivor reception centres and friends and relatives reception centres to be set up. Are you familiar with that?
The idea, yes.
Yes. And I think it's right that the responsibility of setting that up rests with the police.
So the good book says.
So the good book says. Did you appreciate that that is what the good book said on the night?
I knew we had to, but
Right.
again, it's a matter of prioritising what we wanted to do and what we could actually do.
Yes. Was that an action that you actually took as Silver? Did you do that?
I introduced Mr. Perkins to the layout to make sure that was underway, and we had other people, just members of the public, opening their doors, other churches, religious centres opening their doors. So it would be wrong just to consider just the local authority provision of respite centres. The entire community opened up its doors to the people. People just going into other people's living rooms. So as I say, unless we were there right from the word go with a register of people coming out, that was going to be a significant task.
I think it's right that the debrief document records you as having responsibility for setting up survivor reception centres and family centres. We can go back to it if you like, but I think that's what was said. What did you do to do that, to set those up?
I asked the local authority to find premises that we could use in that in those circumstances.
And they found, well, what did they find?
It was 3 in the end. There was as far-reaching as one in Shepherd's Bush. There was the rugby club on I think it was Preston Road, and then there was another one up on towards the Harrow Road. But they were just the local authority ones, as I say. The way the community rallied round each other,
right.
People were going where they were most comfortable, I suppose.
Right. And what involvement did you yourself or your officers themselves have in setting up those centres? In
setting them up, not a great deal.
Right.
But once we had control of the cordons and we had a semblance of an organisation, then I sent officers to each one to find out who was there, what they needed, if there were problems, and what they needed from us. So yes, it was. We didn't initiate it, but once we had the resources and the ability to go and try and take any remedial action required, we did so.
Were you aware at any point during the night that rescue centres or centres for families were within the cordon?
No.
You didn't think they were?
It's news to me. It depends which cordon you're talking about and where.
Do you recall? Well, let me try it this way. Do you recall either you or any of your officers preventing relatives from going inside the cordon to look for loved ones in rescue centres?
No, that's news to me.
News to you. For example, the Garden Grill. Do you remember whether that was?
I remember that being mentioned on the radio a lot. But in relation to your question, I can't help.
Right. Inspector, you'll be pleased to hear that I've come to the end of my questions. At least I think I've come to the end of my questions.
You said 10, that was 4.
Well, I'm glad to be able to disappoint you. But it may yet turn into 10. I'm going to ask the Chairman to rise for a few minutes.
Certainly.
Just to see whether I've got any further questions or whether there are any other questions which emerge from elsewhere. And then I'll ask the Chairman to come back.
Now, Mr. Minnitt, would it be sensible at this stage to take a 10-minute break, as we normally do in the middle of the afternoon?
Yes. We'd better take our afternoon break.
Well, I think you also have the shorthand writers and others.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes.
Well, it may be that Mr. Millett's run out of questions. It may be he hasn't quite run out of questions. We'll have a short break now so that he can consider that and you can get your breath back a bit. We'll come back at 3:20. Please don't talk to anyone about your evidence when we're out of the room, and then we'll see if there are any wrap-up questions then.
Thank you.
All right? Thank you very much. I'd like to go to the usher, please. Okay. 3, please. Yes, Mr. Millett, did you find one or two questions?
I have been found, one has been found for me.
Right. Yes, I think at least one or two questions.
Yes.
But probably not too many, I hope. Yes, Mr. Millett.
Inspector, during the course of the night, did you become aware at any time that friends and loved ones of those still trapped in the tower were attempting to get past the cordon to try to rescue them or to speak to them?
I did.
Were you also aware that friends and loved ones were trying to get past the cordons to see or assist with the identification of those being treated in the rest centres or rescue centres?
In the respite centres?
The rescue centres, I think we call them generally, but...
No, I wasn't aware of that.
Right. And just to confirm what you said before, is it right that you weren't aware that there were any SCRs, survivors reception centres, or family centres within the cordon?
Not within the cordon, no.
And I asked you specifically about Garden Bar and Grill, but you're clear that
I
wasn't
certainly
within the
hear
cordon.
the bar and grill being spoken of as a centre, but I didn't make the connection in my mind that that was within the cordons.
Right. Were there any premises within the cordons that you know of or knew of that were being used to treat or hold those who had escaped the tower?
No, I spent most of my time, I physically see things, at the junction of Bowmore Road near the sports centre. The other addresses that were coming through were just addresses, and it did nothing connected in my mind to think where the cordons were and then make that cognitive leap as to that address is within that cordon, because I was so busy where I was. Does that make sense?
Yes. Did you ever go to any of these survivor reception centres or rest centres?
No. No.
Right. Well, Inspector, thank you very much. Those are all the questions I have for you. I just want to say thank you very much to you for coming to the inquiry and assisting us with our investigations. We very much appreciate it. So thank you very much.
I'd like to add my thanks, Inspector. It's very difficult for you, I think, in some respects, to come and talk about what happened on the evening in question, the morning in question. But it's really valuable for us because we need to know what the police were doing and how that fits into the rest of the story. I'm sorry if it's been a difficult exercise. If I may say so, I think you've given your evidence in a very impressive way, and we're very grateful to you for coming to do it.
My job, sir.
Thank you very much indeed.
But may I go beyond the realms of this inquiry? And I won't get a chance to speak to the families that were in there again directly and to say I'm sorry. I'm really sorry.
Yeah. Well, you did.
1 second, sir. I haven't finished yet. the community as well. Afterwards, from dawn onwards, what they did made everything else possible. And I can't say that it was a decision on anyone's, but it just happened. And I won't get another chance to speak, and thank you. That's all. That's it.
Well, thank you very much. All right, would you like to go with the usher? She'll look after you.
Sir.
Thank you very much. Yes, Mr. Millett.
Mr. Chairman, our next witness is Commander Neil Jerome of the Metropolitan Police Services.
Good, thank you.
If we can please have Commander Jerome. Fine. Mr. Chairman, I'm told he wants to sit and give his evidence.
Yes, well, of course,
so we'll just
right,
make arrangements for that.
Thank you very much.
Please stand and repeat after me, please. I swear by Almighty God
I swear by Almighty God
that the evidence I shall give
that the evidence I shall give
shall be the truth,
shall be the truth,
the whole truth,
the whole truth,
and nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commander. Now you sit down and make yourself comfortable.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, Mr. Millett.
Mr. Chairman, Commander, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Can I ask you please to start by giving us your full name?
Neil Jerome.
Neil Jerome. And I'm going to begin by thanking you very much for coming to the inquiry and assisting us with our investigations into what happened on that night. We very much appreciate your doing so. My questions are intended to be short and simple. Sometimes they're not. So if you wish me to repeat the question in any way at all, or ask another question, I'm happy to do so. And if you need a break at any time, then again, please let me know.
Thank you, I shall.
Now, you've given a statement to the inquiry, which is MET 000-23286. You can just have that on the screen. Now, you've got a bundle in front of you in which to look at it if you like, or you can look at it on the monitor on your desk. It's dated the 8th of October 2018. And that's the first. Can you confirm for us that that's the first page of it?
Yes, it is, sir.
And have you read it recently?
Yes, I have.
And can you please confirm that the contents are true?
Yes, they are.
And can you confirm for us that before coming here today you haven't discussed this statement or your evidence with anybody?
No, I haven't.
Now, there are a number of exhibits to it. I'll read those into the record. There's NAJ1, which is the Strategic Coordination Protocol, which is MET 000-23288. NAJ2, which is Summary of MPS 999 calls, which is MET 000-23291. NAJ3, the Summary of Relevant Police Witness Statements, which is MET 000-23285. NAJ4, which is CAD 482, MET 000-23294. NAJ5, the Summary of CAD 482, which is MET 000-23293. NAJ6, the Joint Doctrine Interoperability Framework, MET 000-23290. NAJ7, the Major Incident Meeting Minutes for 5 a.m., MET 000-23287. NAJ8, the Major Incident Meeting Minutes for 6:30, MET 000-23292. And finally, NAJ9, the Incident Management Log, MET 000-23289. I've read those two all out formally to you so that they are now formally part of our evidential record.
Thank you.
Now, I'm going to start by asking you one or two questions, if I may, about your position and training. You joined the Kent Police Service in 1990, I think.
That's right, yes, sir.
Yes, and I think you say on page 2 of your statement in paragraph 4 that in 2016 you transferred to the Metropolitan Police Service.
That's right, on promotion to the rank of commander.
On your promotion to rank of commander. And as at the night of the fire, 14th of June 2017, was that your position? Was that your rank, commander?
Yes, it was.
And are you still commander?
Yes, I am.
And you say in your statement that you've been trained in commanding multi-agency incidents, and that's at paragraph 4 on page 2. We can just have that up. It's the third line from the bottom of that paragraph. Who delivers that training, or delivered that training?
So that is delivered by the College of Policing.
Right.
And it's a national course which all police services and other emergency services are enrolled to. And in addition to that, I have completed other training as well.
Did that training include incidents involving large-scale fires?
Not specifically. It covers a range of different scenarios, but it didn't specifically cover large-scale fires, no.
Did it ever include, or did it include incidents that have been declared a major incident by either the police or another emergency service?
Yes, it did.
It did. Now, you say in your statement that you have experience of commanding a number of multi-agency incidents, including severe weather events and events declared as emergencies under the Civil Contingencies Act. Were any of those incidents where the London Fire Brigade were involved as the lead organisation?
No, they weren't. Those were incidents that took place when I was a Kent police officer.
Right. Were any of those incidents where Kent Fire and Rescue Service were involved as the lead organisation?
Not as the lead organisation. They were flooding, of which the Environment Agency took the lead, as well as severe snow, and also Operation Stack, which is the parking of heavy goods vehicles on the M20 motorway.
Right. And those severe weather incidents, were they dynamic incidents that required changes in decision-making at speed as you went?
No, not so much. They're more of a slow incident, particularly the likes of flooding where there's advanced notice.
Now, in his witness statement and in his evidence today, Inspector Thatcher says that it's not uncommon for the London Fire Brigade to request police assistance at a fire involving 6 pumps or more. Is that your experience?
So my understanding is that absolutely that is correct, albeit within my experience I would not be called for those types of incident, but unfortunately those types of incident are relatively common across London.
And was that pump level your experience when you were in Kent? It's a badly phrased question. When you were in Kent, before you moved to the Metropolitan Police in 2016, to your understanding, did Kent Fire and Rescue Services have a 6 pump level at which they would involve Kent Police?
So I was aware that Kent Fire and Rescue would request the assistance of Kent Police at incidents. However, in terms of the actual trigger point of those, I'm unaware of.
After you moved to the Metropolitan Police in 2016, did you receive any training in performing a role jointly working with the LFB?
I have undertaken training which is to do with a marauding terrorist attack, which is done in conjunction with the London Fire Brigade and other emergency responders across London.
Did that involve any training on how to share key information received from members of the public about the incident?
That does include receiving of calls from members of the public, which might be really beneficial to how we deal with that incident coming into the police control room. And of course, the general arrangements that are put in place through a multi-agency response would be such where we would be expected to share information with other emergency services and other responders.
Right. And did you ever have any training on how to go about establishing channels of communication with other emergency services, such as the LFB?
So I've received training in the chairing of strategic coordinating groups, which is how you share that information at a strategic level.
Right.
But not specifically in terms of operating of radios or computer systems.
Okay. Have you ever had any training or any experience of setting up systems whereby information coming from members of the public about the incident could be shared on a multi-agency basis?
No, not specifically.
I want to turn to your role on the night of the fire, if I can. You say at page 3 of your statement in paragraph 7 that you were the on-call chief officer for London on that night. And you explain what that is. And you say that, in the third line, the role ensures that there is a chief officer available for significant events and authorisations across the Metropolitan Police. What is classified as when you use the expression significant events, is that a defined term, or is it just the expression you're using?
No, it's not defined in terms of that. That's my expression. However, if there were an incident that required a pan-London mobilisation of police resources, or an incident that required, say, the notification of a major incident to my level, then I would be informed.
Right. So a significant event would include, but wouldn't be restricted to a major incident as defined.
That's right, and there are those incidents that occur that a commander above can give authorisation to. So there are certain aspects within law that a commander above can authorise, not just in relation to dealing with major incidents, but across the board of policing London.
Right. Now, I'm going to ask you to look, please, at a document which is MET 000023289, which is Exhibit 9 to your statement, at page 14. This is your, just so you know what it is, this is your incident management log for the night of the fire. If we just go to the first page of that, I'm sorry, page 1 to start with, just to identify what it is. Just tell us, that's your incident management log for the night, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
And at page 14, if we can jump to that, please, you can see that you say there, at 2:10 hours, this is the very top of the page, at 2:10 hours on Wednesday, 14th of June 2017, I was contacted by, I'm afraid you're going to have to read that out for me.
I was contacted by Chief Inspector Barrett,
the Met GRIP Chief Inspector, informing me that emergency services were responding to reports of a block of flats alight at Grenfell Tower, Latimer Road, Kensington. The initial call came at 1:15 from LFB. It was a 6-pump fire. And then you go on to say, just a third of the way down the page, at this stage, the information was very limited, you see. Just 4 lines down from where it's yellow,
Yes.
we pick it up again. At this stage, the information was very limited, and whilst I considered activating the SOR on the basis of the information and the existing command structure, I considered this not to be proportionate, and nothing could be lost in awaiting an update when more information could be available. Do you know when Chief Inspector Barrett arrived on the scene?
So he wasn't at the scene. He was the control room chief inspector, based at our special operations room at Lambeth.
Right, and let me take it in stages. What time did he arrive at Lambeth, do you think?
So he would have been the night duty chief inspector. My understanding is they work 12-hour nights, and he would have been coming on duty approximately about 1900 hours.
Right, so he was there anyway?
Yes.
I see.
And that's a 24/7 function,
Yeah.
operating throughout the year.
Now, we know that police had been at the scene, were at the scene, from about 1:20, and we heard from Inspector Thatcher this morning that some of the constables were there, such as Constable Sanger and Constable Rees. Do you know why Chief Inspector Barrett only had limited information at 2:10 when officers had been at the scene since about 1:20, 50 minutes before?
So in referring to limited information, what that referred to is that initial call that came to me. And clearly he would have been in receipt of a lot more comprehensive information than what he gave me. But the purpose of that call at 02:10 was to wake me up and get me in a position where I would then be able to receive a further phone call subsequently, where I would then receive more information. So the information he gave me at 10 minutes past 2 in the morning was sufficient in order to get me up and beginning to function so that I could then be in an appropriate position to receive more detailed information when he then rang me back.
And he rang you back at what time?
At 02:30.
30, we come to that. At this early stage, did you know that the LFB had been in contact with the Metropolitan Police twice, once at 1:16 and once at 1:50, to provide them with an update?
I did not, so it was that initial call that came through. I would expect at that stage at 02:10 just to receive sufficient enablement for me just to start thinking through what the police actions and what my actions would need to be as well.
Did you have a facility for you to be able to access the overall CAD for the incident, which is CAD 482, remotely?
No, I did not.
Right.
And certainly in terms, I've never operated the computer-aided dispatch system, the CAD system, and it's clearly you need a high degree of training in order to operate it and to then ensure that it's working properly.
Right. Now, in your statement at the bottom of page 3, we can just go back to that. You say that to line up from the bottom, I would expect to be notified between 30 and 60 minutes of an incident coming to police attention. Would you expect to be notified I mean, would you expect to be notified as soon as the incident had been declared a major incident?
Not necessarily so, because whilst an incident may be declared as a major incident by the police, there are 5 stages to how we would manage a major incident. So the London Resilience Forum set out those 5 stages, ranging from monitoring right the way through to a full escalation of a strategic coordinating group. And it would be a judgment by whoever is in command at that point as to at what stage would we look to manage that particular incident.
And at what stage would you normally be expected to be notified?
So once a major incident, we were looking at the mobilisation of resources from across London, and where there would be an activation of the strategic coordinating group, then I would be expected to be notified.
Right. Now, when Chief Inspector Barrett woke you up, did he tell you, this is at 2:10, did he tell you that the police had already declared a major incident some 40 minutes, 35 minutes before?
Not at that stage, no.
Do you know why he wouldn't have done?
No, I do not.
Did he tell you that the London Fire Brigade had just declared, as they indeed had, a major incident?
He did not, no.
Again, is there any reason why he
don't
didn't?
know.
Okay. Would you expect him to have done?
At that stage, at 02:10, it probably would have helped my thinking in terms of beginning to think through what the major incident protocol was. But I think, and I would need to refresh my memory, he did so when he rang me at 02:30 hours to inform me that a major incident had been declared.
Yeah. And indeed, in paragraph 42 of your statement on page 12, if we can turn to it, you say, after the initial call at 2:10, I was contacted again at 2:30 by Chief Inspector Barrett, who advised me that a major incident had been declared and that there were multiple casualties being reported. And then you say, declaring a major incident is a significant declaration which by its very definition is infrequently used and therefore has a significant impact when it is. Upon hearing this information, I decided a full multi-agency response would be needed, requiring the activation of a strategic coordinating group, SCG, of senior representatives from the agencies involved, in line with Joint Emergency Services interoperability principles known as JESIP, etc. Would you have expected or wanted to have been contacted as soon as the police had declared it a major incident at 01:32 at latest?
No, not necessarily so, because of those different levels of managing a major incident, it would not ordinarily be a reflex action to ring the chief officer on call to let them know that. It would only then be if we were looking to activate those higher levels of response that are set out in the London Resilience Forum paper.
Right. Now, just focusing on the different levels, you refer in your statement to a full multi-agency response would be needed. That's something you decided. Does that tell us that when you learn that there's a major incident, you might decide that something less than a full multi-agency response would be needed?
So within those levels, you can have very much a tactical commanders meeting that takes place to resolve something. If it looks as though an incident will be prolonged, will require specialist resources, and be something which will have a significant impact, which this clearly will have on the lives of those individuals who tragically lost their lives, but also on those who are bereaved and survivors, on the local community and on London in general, and also probably on the nation as a whole, then it would require that full response. But it does depend upon the nature and those different varying responses.
Now, what was it about what Chief Inspector Barrett told you at 2:30 that led you to decide that a full multi-agency response, as opposed to something lesser, would be needed?
So the notification of multiple casualties, that to me, clearly thinking through a large building, multiple casualties, lots of people who call Grenfell Tower, that's their home, that for me, my instinct is there are going to be an awful lot of people who are going to be involved in this tragedy, and we need to put in place the right mechanisms in order to support them.
Right. Do we take it from that when he initially contacted you at 2:10, Chief Inspector Barrett didn't tell you that there were multiple casualties at that stage?
Not at that point. It was a very factual, almost, this is what we've responded to, so that I could then just begin to wake myself up and get myself into a position where I could then start making some critical decisions.
When he told you at 2:30 that a major incident had been declared, did Chief Inspector Barrett tell you who had declared it?
No, he did not.
So you didn't know whether it was a police declaration or a London Fire Brigade declaration?
No, I did not.
Did you ask him?
No, I did not.
Would it have assisted you to know?
It was significant for me to know at 02:30 that a major incident had been declared, and with that other information in terms of multiple casualties, that it would be my understanding that that's a significant declaration and a significant piece of information that he's conveyed to me.
Did you discover at that stage that, in fact, the police had declared a major incident just under an hour before?
No, I did not.
Does it surprise you that an hour had gone by before you were alerted to the fact that a major incident had been declared with multiple casualties?
Again, it very much depends. So whilst the police officers at the scene had declared a major incident, that would have triggered a response at the scene, the establishment of a command structure, the calling out and attendance of the senior officer on duty. So all of those factors have all taken place. When then the full significance of that becomes realised, of multiple casualties, and then also the fact that we would require resources from across London, specialist assets, to make their way to that area, as well as the other agencies involved, such as the fire brigade and also the ambulance service. Then it's at that point then for me that then becomes a chief officer incident that requires involvement.
Now, at paragraph 14 of your witness statement on page 5, if you could just go back to it, or back in your statement to it, you define or set out the definition of a major incident from the London Resilience Partnership Strategic Coordination Protocol, which you've exhibited at NAJ1. You quote here from 1.4.7, and I don't need to read it out to you. You then go on in paragraph 15 to say that the declaration of a major incident recognises that special arrangements need to be implemented by emergency services to deal with a range of serious consequences by one or more emergency responder agencies. At the point of the declaration of a major incident, I think you're telling us that there may be different kinds of major incident,
yes,
and therefore your response would have to be nuanced,
so
flexible to that.
There has to be a flexible response. So part of being a police commander at whatever level is, whilst having received the training and you understand what the policy and procedures are, the application of that to the circumstances that you have in front of you will be flexible.
Right. Going on then to page 6 of your statement, paragraph 16, you say the declaration of a major incident will trigger a multi-agency conversation between the emergency services to share information and create a common operating picture of the nature of the incident and the emergency response. It will trigger the establishment of a strategic coordination centre and strategic coordination group to support the multi-agency response to the incident. Now, it looks from that you're saying that every time there is a major incident declared, that triggers these things, the strategic coordination centre and the group and the multi-agency response, really automatically. Is that right?
So not in every instance. So when a major incident is declared, then there should be a conversation between the control room leads for the emergency services. That should take place every time that there's a declaration that takes place. And of course, it may mean that those conversations are also taking place at other levels as well within the organisations. But it's not the case that every major incident will require a strategic coordinating group to be established.
Right. Because it looks from here, you're saying in the third line, it will trigger the establishment of a strategic coordination centre and strategic coordinating group. It looks from your statement that you're saying that every declaration of a major incident automatically does that.
So I'm referring in that statement there to the circumstances of this particular tragedy,
right,
as opposed to, and I would not wish to mislead to say that every major incident requires an SCG, because my experience is such that, that would not be required every single time.
Right. Now, just focusing on this incident then, this multi-agency conversation, who would you or did you expect would speak to whom once the major incident had been declared by the police at just after 1:30?
So that would be our respective golds and silvers that would have that conversation.
Right. Does that mean that in order to have this conversation, the LFB and indeed the LAS would need to know that the police had called a major incident?
There would clearly be an expectation that, an understanding that the reason why a police gold is going to speak to their equivalent would be that something significant has taken place, and that would be the declaration of a major incident.
Have you ever come across a situation where the police declares a major incident without alerting the other emergency services to the fact?
I haven't in my experience. However, when you are dealing with incidents, they are incredibly complex, and our first priority is the saving of life, and there may well be many actions that officers are bravely taking at the time, which will mean that when you look at the procedures, it will say to notify others, but if that would be compromised by trying to save an individual's life, then those officers will attempt to save life and reprioritise and then come to alerting the emergency services that a major incident has been declared. Our overriding priority is to save life.
Yes. Given that looking at this incident, what gets triggered by the declaration of a major incident is the multi-agency conversation. Given that that's one of the things that is triggered, what would happen if the LFB didn't know that the Metropolitan Police had declared a major incident?
So I think in this instance, with everything we knew on the night and we know subsequently, I think this would be a fairly obvious categorisation of that incident, that the declaration of a major incident and those conversations taking place would be taking place anyway. And certainly for me, for those officers on the night, it would have been clear to them that this was something which would require a response which was certainly out of the realms of business as usual.
I'm not quite getting there. You have the police declaring a major incident at just after 1:32, for the sake of argument. Would you expect that the police would, at that stage, tell the LAS and the LFB that they'd done it?
Reasonably, as soon as possible thereafter, yes.
Do you know why, in this case, the LAS and the LFB were not told that the police had declared a major incident?
No, I do not.
How was a multi-agency conversation going to happen if the LFB did not know that the police had declared a major incident?
So I would expect that officers on the scene would be going to go and speak to their colleagues in the other agencies and having those conversations with them. They don't need to have a major incident declared to go and have those conversations with them.
Do they not, though, need to know that a multi-agency conversation as such is happening in the light of a major incident, so as to be able to put together a common operating plan or common operating picture?
So those conversations would take place, and the sharing of that information to get to that shared common operating picture would be taking place. The fact that it hasn't been shared that there's a major incident would not stop those conversations from taking place in the first instance.
No, I understand that there may be a level of informality about it, but I just want to see how close we get to compliance with policy. That's what this is really about. If you can look, please, at MET 000023288. MET 000-23288. This is the London Resilience Partnership Strategic Coordinating Protocol. And turn, please, in that document to page 13. At the top of the page, it says, and I should perhaps take you back to the page before. The page before is where we see the definition of a major incident, and you quoted parts of that in your statement. At the top of page 13, and we're still within paragraph 1.4.7, it says, declaring a major incident triggers a predetermined response from some emergency service and other responder organisations. It takes time for operational structures, resources and protocols to be put in place. Declaring that a major incident is in progress as soon as possible means that these arrangements can be put in place as quickly as possible. Now, just pausing there, in your experience, would you agree with that statement?
Yes, I would.
So speed is of the essence, yes?
Yes, it is.
And following the MPS declaration of a major incident at 0132, what multi-agency conversation would you expect ordinarily to happen?
So I would be expecting that the silver and gold commanders would be having conversations with their colleagues in the other emergency services.
And would it assist the MPS to know whether, and if so when, the other organisations had declared a major incident?
That would be certainly helpful, but it would not stop those conversations from taking place.
Right. Would you agree that it's less than optimal for the Met to declare a major incident without the LFB knowing about it, and vice versa?
I would expect each agency to share that information as soon as they were able to.
Yeah. And that it's less than optimal that they don't?
I don't think that it would stop those conversations, but clearly it does, for absolute clarity, the declaring of a major incident and sharing that information across the emergency services should take place as quickly as possible.
Yes. Now, going down it, in the next paragraph, it says, a major incident may be declared by a single partnership organisation or jointly. It is feasible that only one organisation may determine an emergency as a major incident based on the type of incident and scale of their resources required. This may not necessarily mean it is a major incident for all other organisations. Would you agree with me that that doesn't indicate that major incidents can be declared, as it were, in a vacuum without other agencies knowing about it?
Yes, that's right.
Right. Now, on page 6 of your statement, sorry, let me go back a little bit. We know that the LFB declared a major incident at 0206, and I don't need to show you a document about that. We've had evidence about that. And that's about 30 minutes or so after the MPS had declared a major incident. And you were asleep at 0206, to be fair to you.
Still just, yes.
Yes, just about to be woken up. And therefore you may not be able to help me with this, but to the best of your knowledge, did the LFB know about the MPS's declaration of the major incident?
I'm sorry, I don't know.
You don't, right. Now, your witness statement on page 6, it is the continuation of paragraph 15, if you could just go back to that, please, Commander. You say that any member of an emergency service can declare a major incident. Is that something that you're aware of from experience or from documents that you referred to in your witness statement?
Certainly in my experience that a constable can declare a major incident, and the trust and the professionalism that we place in our officers is such that the first officer on the scene can declare a major incident.
And if that is done, would you expect that fact to be disseminated widely and urgently around all the other officers involved?
Yes, I would.
And how would that be done generally?
By the radio system.
Right. And have you had any experience of your own of members of other emergency services declaring a major incident after the police have declared one?
So there will always be a difference in the time that different organisations may declare a major incident. I can't recall a specific example off the top of my head, but because of the different priorities and the different responses of other emergency services, it might be that there is a difference in timing between those organisations declaring a major incident or not. It doesn't have to be everybody declaring it all at the same time.
Yeah, my question was about your personal experience or professional experience. Have you ever been at an incident where two agencies had declared a major incident?
Yes, it does take place, yes.
And your experience, have you had?
Yes, it has.
Right. And what were those incidents?
So declaring of it was with regards to public disorder that was taking place. That would be slightly different in terms of the timescales because of the different responses of the police, who were the lead agency for dealing with that public disorder, but also then within that other agencies coming in, which was at that point was the ambulance service because of injuries that were being sustained.
I see. Now, I want to ask you some questions about the start and the progression of the incident. First of all, before you became involved, because you detailed quite a lot in your statement about what happened before you were involved, and let's see how we go with that. But paragraph 10 on page 4, first of all, you say there that PC Sanger and PC Rees were the first officers at the scene at 1:22. Now, we know from PC Sanger's witness statement, and that's MET quadruple 07837, he says that his intention was to make contact with the LFB incident commander and make an assessment of the scene in order to prioritise your role to save life and limb and assist the LFB with cordon and control of the scene. And he then goes on to say that he asked PC Rees to make contact with the LFB command unit. From your knowledge of the events of the night, do you know if PC Rees received a briefing from the incident commander, the LFB incident commander at the scene?
I'm sorry, sir, I don't know.
Okay. Now, you say that PC Sanger, if you look at your statement, you say that PC Sanger reported, this is 3 lines up from the bottom, that it was unknown if people were trapped, but that evacuation of the building was required. Parts of the building appeared to be falling from the exterior of it, and that it ought to be declared a critical incident. First of all, do you know where PC Sanger got that information from?
No, I do not.
When you say here what you do in your statement, where are you taking that information from?
So I believe I'm taking that from their statements.
I see. So this is your repeating, essentially, what you've read in their evidence?
Yes.
This isn't your own recollection, is it?
No.
I see. Okay. And is that true of everything you say in paragraphs 10, 11 and 12?
Yes, that's correct.
Do you know in general, because we can see statements in CAD 482 about it, where he refers to evacuation. Do you know in general where PC Sanger got information about evacuation from?
No, I do not.
No. Now, if I can take you to the foot of page 9 of your witness statement, paragraph 31, where some 3 pages into the part of your statement which starts on page 7, dealing with the events of the night, actions taken by police officers, Paragraph 31, you say, foot of page 9, as the morning progressed, the response remained focused on the tower, but there was additionally a focus on trying to establish where evacuees were and which hospitals the casualties had been taken to, so that the Casualty Bureau could run effectively. Now, can I start by asking you to look at the Major Incident Procedure Manual, which is RBK 000-13294. RBK 000-13294. And go, please, in that document to page 34. It's thanks. RBK 000-13294. Page 34.
Are you able to bring it up on the screen for me, please?
It's just going to come up. Yes,
Thank you. Thank you.
Come on, I wouldn't dream of putting, certainly not this document to you without you seeing it. This is, just so you know what it is the London, it's the LESLP Major Incident Procedure Manual, version 9.4 from 2015. I can show you the first page if you like, but it's a long document.
That's fine.
And this is page 34, and we have it on the screen.
Thank
and
you.
It's paragraph 9.7, or section 9.7, Survivor Reception Centre. Now, looking over the page at paragraph 9.9, I'll come back to Survivor Reception Centre in a moment. At 9.9, you can see the part of this which refers to Casualty Bureau. And it says, police may establish a casualty bureau where details on all dead, casualties, survivors and evacuees will be collated. This centre will also take telephone inquiries from friends and relatives of people who are believed to be involved in the incident. Casualty bureau staff will then match details of persons involved with inquiries. Where a match is made, appropriate contact with the inquirer will be made. Now, I've shown you that and I've shown you your statement. When you refer in your statement to the Casualty Bureau, as we see at the top of page 10, within paragraph 31, is that what you're referring to?
Yes, I am.
Now, what role would the police normally take in assisting with the establishment and operation of a Casualty Bureau?
So the Casualty Bureau would be a police-led facility that would be established. The Casualty Bureau has a number of different elements to it. So partly that is receiving calls from persons who believe that they may have someone who's involved with an incident, and then there is also then a separate part to it that receives information either from hospitals or from survivor reception centres, or certainly what we saw at Grenfell was the fantastic response from the local community of trying to help out their neighbours. So people wouldn't simply go to a survivor reception centre, they would be going to a whole host of different places as well, and that really is, I think, a measure of the humility and the humanitarian assistance that people were spontaneously given. So we take that information, marry that then with the information that we're receiving of individuals and loved ones who may well be missing, marrying that also up with information that's coming from our hospitals to say who are the injured, as well as, tragically, those individuals who will have sadly lost their lives as well. Putting that all together is a Casualty Bureau function to then enable us to give very accurate information to loved ones, and also then to other agencies such as the coroner if we need to.
Do you know when the Casualty Bureau was established?
Sorry, say that.
Do you know when the Casualty Bureau for Grenfell Tower was established?
Yes, I believe that was established at approximately 0630.
Right. And did it have a geographical place? Was it in a particular location?
So the Casualty Bureau is established, I believe, at Hendon. However, because of the volume of calls that come in, the police service operates on a mutual aid basis where other police forces will provide telephone receipt for that. My understanding, certainly from my point of view, is that I made the command decision that we would activate a Casualty Bureau. That does take time to put in place, so that was one of the first critical decisions I made at 0230 hours, because I did understand that that would take some time to put in place. Right. So whilst there is a physical location to it, certainly the Metropolitan Police would ask other forces if we needed to provide assistance to us.
And who was put in charge of establishing the Casualty Bureau?
So Chief Inspector Barrett would start the process of calling people out, and then we would then have a Casualty Bureau manager working to the Senior Identification Manager, who in turn would then work to the coroner.
Right. And do you know why a Casualty Bureau wasn't established or ordered to be established earlier than 2:30?
So that would be, I suspect, because it was at that point it became crystal clear that we were tragically dealing with many people who were going to be casualties or indeed lost their lives.
Now, in your statement at paragraph 32 on the top of page 10, if you can just go back to it, you say MPS officers did not assist with any aspect of the evacuation of residents from the tower itself, given that the LFB were quite rightly the lead emergency service for that aspect of the incident. When you refer to evacuation there of the residents, what are you referring to?
So I am referring to police officers entering the tower in order to escort those residents out of their flats.
Right. We know from the witness statement of PC Rees that he in fact did enter the tower and assist in evacuation of residents from the stairwell. Did you know that at the time?
I did not, and certainly what has emerged is the bravery of my colleagues who put themselves absolutely in harm's way to protect life and go into a building which they were under the very real understanding was a very dangerous structure and may collapse, but they put themselves into harm's way to save other people's lives.
When did you learn that PC Rees had entered the building?
Not until quite some considerable time later on.
Did you know, or do you know, whether he was acting alone or whether there were other police officers at the scene also doing what he was doing and assisting in evacuation?
I'm sorry, I don't. I mean, I would suspect that given that our resources in those very early stages would have been building up, that those numbers would have been, I would have thought, quite small. But absolutely, one of the things of a police officer is you make those independent decisions based upon the circumstances that you have in front of you at the time.
Now, going back in your statement to page 9, please, Commander, paragraph 30, you say, in the beginning of that paragraph, specialist resources were also deployed to Grenfell Tower. The territorial support group was deployed. These officers are highly trained in a range of skills, including the rapid entry to buildings, and they have additional protective equipment that would be unavailable to response officers. Now, I'm trying to put a time on that. If I can ask you please to be shown first CAD 482, which is MET 000023294, at page 8. You see there on page 8 a time mark of 1:35:23. Just below halfway down the page, there's a little tag or legend, CCHHENDO. It looks like, and correct me if I'm wrong, something like Command Centre Hendon. Would that be right?
I don't know for certain.
Right.
If I'm guessing, that may well be the case, but I'm sorry, I don't know definitively, no.
No, all right. Liaised with Met Grip. You've told us what Met Grip is.
So that's the Chief Inspector who's based at the control room in Lambeth.
Yeah, requesting TSG assistance with evac. Now, TSG is, I think, Territorial Support Group. My question is, first of all, does this help identify the time at which TSG officers were requested for deployment?
Yes, it does.
Do you know when they, well, first of all, did they come? Do you know whether they turned up?
Yes, they did.
Do you know when they turned up?
Not precisely, no.
Right.
The CAD, I would expect, would be able to tell us that precise information.
And how, and perhaps you can't help me with this, but see if you can, how would the Territorial Support Group be able to assist with evacuation?
So, my understanding of that particular comment is that because of the very real fear that the fire was going to spread beyond the tower and that the falling debris could well ignite other properties. And those who were fast asleep that night would be unaware of what was happening. So police officers were going to those different properties in order to wake the residents, in order to evacuate them out of there so that they're out of danger. But of course, there may be those flats where people simply won't wake to repeated knocking, and the Police and Criminal Evidence Act does give us a right, a legal power to enter property to save life. So if an officer isn't receiving a door being opened to repeated knocking, then officers from the Territorial Support Group do have equipment available to them so that they could force entry to that property in order to save life, and do so. And that for me would be, again, something where those officers are putting themselves into harm's way in order to save other people's lives.
Now, this is evacuation not of the tower, it sounds like, from your evidence, but of the neighbouring
That's
properties.
Correct. That's correct, because police officers wouldn't be clearly entering into Grenfell itself. They have neither the equipment or the training in order to fight fires.
Right. Could those officers have assisted with evacuation of residents from the tower itself?
They wouldn't be able to do so because the entering that tower, because of the smoke, because of the danger of fire, those officers would not be equipped or trained in order to enter a firefighting environment.
So, does this tell us that at this time, or by this time, 1:35, there was a concern within the Met that this fire would spread to those neighbouring blocks?
So that would certainly give rise to that concern, and what I am seeing there is that some exercising of what I would expect of commanders, which is thinking through what are the options for later on should we need to use those resources, because it's better to think in advance and get those resources there rather than suddenly think I need them and then have to wait for them to respond. So part of being a commander is that not just certainly the rank, but in terms of that exercise of leadership and of command, is thinking through what are the scenarios that I may be called to deal with, and then ensuring that I've got the right resources in the right place to deal with them.
Right. Does the training of TSG officers include evacuation from dangerous structures or structures that are on fire?
I don't know for certain, but I would doubt that very much.
Now, turning to a slightly different topic, communication with the LFB. Is it right that the police, Metropolitan Police, would expect or be expected to share information with partners promptly and to monitor, establish and monitor a joint emergency service airwave channel?
Certainly establishing joint comms, that would absolutely be the case. Whether that is a airwave channel or not, I think would depend upon the circumstances. If you've got individuals that are co-located, talking to each other, then the provision of an airwave radio would seem to frustrate those conversations.
Well, let me just put something to you. Can you please be shown RBK 000132994, which we looked at a moment ago, at page 13. And if you go to page 13 and look please at paragraph 4.1.2, you can see it says under the general heading working together, communication, share information with partners promptly, establish and monitor a joint emergency service airwave channel through METCC. At this incident, would you expect that to happen?
Yes, I would.
Did it happen?
I do not know.
Who would normally establish that channel?
That would be through the Met control room.
Right. And how would they liaise with the London Fire Brigade control room in order to establish that channel?
So that would be through telephone and then getting that particular channel established.
Right. And can you help as to whether or not or how that was established in this incident?
I'm sorry, that's not within my knowledge.
Can you please be turned to page 28 of the same document? And there you see paragraph 810, which deals with interagency command. And it says under 810.1, LAS and LFB command vehicles that attend the scene are each equipped with Tetra airwave radio. Do the police also have access to Tetra airwave radio?
So our radio system is airwave, yes.
Right. And then it goes on at 8.10.2, all services are able to communicate on airwave interoperability talk groups that are common to all emergency services. And it goes on to say, as you can see there, that these are the ES talk groups which are found in each force-specific folder in both handheld and control room radio terminals. And there are two different kinds, talk group IC1, and then there's interagency talk group IAT1, available to all airwave users as well as a number of police and multi-agency mutual aid talk groups. Does that tell us that anyone who's got an airwave radio could actually get onto the interagency talk group and talk to their opposite number or somebody else in a partner agency?
It would, but it would also mean that in so doing, they'd take themselves off their own channel that they were listening to. So there's always a balance between what do I need to listen to. And of course, what this advice is driving towards is establishing that shared communication. It doesn't need to be done necessarily over a radio. It can clearly be done face-to-face and through meetings. But there is that balance between, do I go onto a shared talk group or do I stay on the own radio channel for my own agency? And there's always that balance that a commander just needs to think through in terms of what's right at those different circumstances.
Do you know whether a talk group for tactical commanders was set up at Grenfell?
I don't know.
What about an IAT1 talk group? Do you know whether that was set up at Grenfell?
No, I don't.
Turning to a different topic, Commander, FSG calls and information. At page 10 of your statement, if I can go back to that, you say on page 10, under the heading Fire Survival Guidance Calls and Information, and you deal with that over 2 pages from paragraph 33 onwards. And at paragraph 33 you say that you're aware that the initial advice from the scene was that the LFB was saying stay put. And you say in the last sentence of that paragraph, para 33, I can see that officers at the scene were following that guidance from the LFB when they were being approached by members of the public seeking advice. Is that your reading of evidence to the inquiry or to the police, or is that your own personal knowledge?
So that's my reading of the evidence to the inquiry. That's not my personal knowledge.
I see.
No.
Okay. Now, do you know from your own knowledge of the events of the night what advice particular officers were giving at particular times?
Not when I arrived on duty into the control room. By that point, the stay put policy had been changed. So I am aware subsequently of what that advice was, but on the night when I arrived, the stay put policy had changed.
Now, you arrived about 4:10, I think you tell us.
That's correct.
What time did your call with that started at 2:30 with Chief Inspector Barrett finish?
So I didn't make a note of the time, but I suspect that it was approximately 02:40, 02:45.
Right, and you then, what happened after that? Did you leave immediately?
No, so I then got myself ready in order to make myself available then to come up into the Special Operations Room.
At Lambeth?
Yes, that's right.
Now, during that period between 2:40, 2:45, did you get any information yourself about the change to stay put advice or the advice that was being given to occupants of the building who were still trapped?
No, I didn't.
Did you have any conversations at all with anybody during that period?
I received a couple of updates on my way in, very, very short, just in terms of to the extent of the fire that was taking hold, but they were very short inputs from the control room, because clearly they were trying to manage the incident and mobilise resources, and I wasn't in a position where I could take calls because of the speed at which we were making our way.
can I ask you to be shown, just in light of that answer, MET 000233293, which is a CAD summary prepared by the Metropolitan Police. And turn to page 21 in it, please. That's MET 000233293, page 21. And at 3:58:03, you can see a message from Gold, which reports a message from the Commissioner of the London Fire Brigade. The advice from the LFB is to try and self-evacuate. There is no guarantee that the LFB will be able to go in and evacuate people due to the safety of the building and post-collapse. Did you hear that message at that time?
No, I did not.
Do you know why you didn't?
Because I was still, albeit arriving very shortly thereafter, but I would still be very close to arriving at Lambeth, but not in a position to receive that. My understanding is, and it is particularly chilling to hear that, but that would have been communicated over the radio system.
When you got to Lambeth at about 4:10, did you subsequently discover that this message had been sent?
Yes, I believe so. I think my notes show that people were being told to self-evacuate out of the building.
And how long after arrival at Lambeth do you think you were told that?
So I arrived at 04:10. It would have been quite quickly thereafter whilst I was receiving the briefing.
Now, we know that, and I'm going to turn to a specific set of FSG calls, Commander, and if you don't have any specific recollection of these, then say so. But I just want to ask you some questions about a particular resident called Zainab Dean. Now, at 1:29, and I'll put this to you because it's in the CAD and in other records, but at 1:29:05 she reports that a fire is coming into her building, and then the call ends abruptly. And just for the record, that call is CAD 543. The call goes through to the Metropolitan Police Control Centre, and then the operator rings her back at 02:01:40. She reports that her son was with her and that they were unable to get out. And she was advised by the operator to go to the window and wave to the police helicopter. And I'd better show you this. It's INQ 50270. And this is the, if you go please to page 3 to start with. In this is a transcript of this call. And this is call 5 at the foot of page 3. And I'll just show you this. Zainab Dean, yes. Hi, Mrs. Dean, is that you? Sounds of smoke alarm in background. Yeah, yes. There is a large fire at your location. Are you able to get out? No. How can I get out? And turn the page, please, to page 4. And then there's some discussion about fire exit. And then the operator says 5 lines down, okay, you're going to have to remain calm, okay? How many people with you? Me and my son. Me and my son. You and your son, all right, calm down, okay. There's fire brigade coming up the stairs trying to evac everyone. Are you able to have a look and see if it is able to go downstairs? I mean, where's the fire exit? Just pausing there, can you help us as to how the operator knew or was able to say to her that the fire brigade was coming up the stairs trying to evacuate everyone?
I don't know for certain, other than it may well be that certainly there is communications between the control room that's dispatched and in conversations with the London Fire Brigade with the operators. That would be my assumption.
And then lower down, she says, I can't go into it, the smoke is coming from the inaudible. Okay, and then the operator says this, are you able to go to the window and wave to the police helicopter? Zainab Dean, overspeaking and shouting, is there anyone? Go to the window, says the operator. Go to the window and wave to the police helicopter. And then, is there anyone on the 14th floor? Hello. And Miss Dean says, over speaking but initial words unclear, alone on the 14th floor, unclear words outside, outside, over speaking hello, hello, yes. And then the MPS operator says, you need to remain calm, okay? Go to the window and see if you can wave to the helicopter. And then it continues, yeah, and then hello, and then there's no further response. And if we turn the page again, I think that's the end of the, also that's the end of the call. Now, my question is, do you know why the MPS operator would advise a resident to wave to the police helicopter from her window?
No, I do not.
Is there any kind of police protocol or guidance or policy which would tell an operator to tell a person trapped in a burning building to signal their presence to the police helicopter, if one was there?
I don't know.
Right. Do you know whether there is a system whereby police helicopters would identify people waving at buildings and do something about it?
So, certainly a police helicopter, if it were able to see what was going on, would then be relaying that information back to the control room.
Do you know whether pilots were updated by the control room about what that resident was doing?
Sorry, can you just repeat the first few words?
Were pilots updated, do you know, by the control room, by the police control room, about what was happening with that resident?
I don't know.
Can I ask you to see the MI manual, Major Incident Manual, at RBK 000133294, please? This is the LELSP Major Incident Procedure Manual, which we looked at a moment ago when we were looking at the Casualty Bureau and the reception centres. I want to show you something else in it at page 37, please. And we can see it, section 10 of this document is headed helicopters, and section 10.1 is police helicopters, and at 10.1.3, helicopters can provide the following support facilities. And you can see the long list of bullet points there, including the fourth bullet point, casualty search, assessment of numbers. Do you see that? Do you know whether the police helicopter was present for that purpose at Grenfell on the night?
So not specifically, albeit reading that now, certainly in my experience, I've used helicopters to search large expanses of land in order to try and find casualties using their thermal imaging equipment. Of course, they can do that far more efficiently than relying on police officers to do so on their own.
When performing the role of supporting casualty search and assessment of numbers, would you expect a police operator to advise a caller to attract the helicopter's attention?
Could you rephrase the question again,
yes,
please?
You could. Well, let me put it a slightly different way. If you look at all those bullet points, none. I can put it to you this way: none of those involve the actual rescue by helicopter of a 999 caller.
No, that's absolutely right. Police helicopters are not equipped nor trained to carry out those types of rescue functions.
Right. So looking at the sorts of support facilities that the police helicopter present at Grenfell could assist with, one of them is, and I'm putting this to you, bullet point 4, casualty search and assessment of numbers, yes?
Yes.
And you said you didn't know, I think, whether that was one of the purposes for which a helicopter was deployed to Grenfell.
So I think it would have been deployed, and so this is my understanding. I did not call it myself, but was to give an assessment, a wider assessment of the scene, the cordons, and clearly, if there are people in distress within the building, then they would be radioing that through to the control room.
Mm-hmm. And my question then is, would you expect the police operator to tell the caller to attract the helicopter pilot's attention? in the way that we see in the transcript?
And I think the operator is making an assessment based upon the circumstances that they've got in front of them, and are doing their best to try and help, and doing their best to try and aid the rescue of those individuals.
Would you expect the operator to explain to the caller exactly why they were telling them to attract the helicopter pilot's attention, given that the roles for a police helicopter do not include actual rescue?
I think the circumstances that our operators were dealing with on that night are clearly incredibly emotional. To expect an operator to describe it in those terms, I would doubt very much.
I mean, really, what I'm to cut through the verbiage, what I'm trying to get at, I think, is why would a police operator tell a caller to signal to a helicopter if the helicopter wasn't going to rescue them?
I don't know why that operator said that.
Okay. Can I turn to a different topic, which is the change in what we call the stay put advice? Now, in your statement at paragraph 35, at the top of page 11, you say, exhibiting the CAD 482, that at 3:08 a message was received by the MPS control room from the LFB stating that the fire safety guidance had changed and that those inside the building ought to escape by any means possible. And you say, my current understanding is that the message was communicated across the airways to officers shortly before 3:10. What was that current understanding based on? Was it the reading of the CAD?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Do you know how the message was relayed from the LFB to the MPS control room?
I don't know.
Do you know whether the message was relayed from the LFB control room or from the LFB officers at the incident ground itself? Do you know?
I'm sorry, I don't know.
Right. And we can also see that the message was repeated 2 to 3 minutes later at 3:10:56, and I don't need to show it to you, but do you know why the message had to be repeated 2 minutes later?
So I don't know for certain, but I would suspect that something as significant as that would be absolutely crystal clear to everybody to know. So I would expect that that's probably the reason why, just to repeat it.
And we can see, as I've shown you before from page 28 of CAD 482, that Gold had said that the London Fire Brigade Commissioner had essentially repeated the advice, was that to residents to try to self-evacuate. No guarantee that the LFB would be able to go in and evacuate people. That message was sent at 03:58:03. My question is, do you know why that was sent at that time?
No, I do not.
You don't. Now, you say at paragraph 32 on page 11 of your statement, paragraph 36 on page 11 of your statement, that there is a schedule of witness statements, which you've exhibited at NAJ 3, where you say that you can see that a number of officers at the scene recall hearing a message at approximately 3 o'clock and passed on that guidance when required to do so. Is that your interpretation or reading of those witness statements?
Yes, it is.
Right, it's not your own evidence?
No, it's not.
Right. Do you know whether or not, from your own knowledge of the events of the night, officers were telling members of the public who were on the phone to residents inside the building to stay put after 3:10?
No, I don't need to look at the CADs, but that would not be within my own personal knowledge.
Right. Now, we've heard evidence from the London Fire Brigade that the decision was made to change the stay put advice in the control room around about 2:35 a.m. or between 2:30 and 2:30 and 2:50 a.m. And also made or at least logged at the scene at 2:47 a.m. Assuming that the decision by the London Fire Brigade to change the advice was made at those times or within that time range, when would you have expected your officers to be told of the change in the stay put advice?
So I would expect that to be undertaken as soon as possible.
Can you account for the delay in getting that information to your officers?
No, I can't. I'm sorry.
Do you know if the delay in communication of the change in stay put advice, if there was a delay, had any effect on your operations?
Certainly the advice that officers would be giving to the public would be based upon the very latest advice that they've been given.
Now, I'm going to ask you questions or two about your involvement on the night, and I'm going to ask you to go to paragraph 49 of your statement.
Mr. Millett, forgive my interrupting you. Can you give us any indication of how many more questions you have, or how long it will take? Well, I asked the question because the commander's been giving evidence for quite a while.
Yes.
He would normally have stopped at 4:30, but he may prefer to finish his evidence today if that's possible. I don't know, I haven't asked him yet. But I'm sure if we're going to go on, he'd like to know how long he's going to go on.
Yes, I can understand that. I would say I would like to ask him rather more questions than I suspect I'm going to be able to at the time.
No, I'm not trying to restrict your time at all.
I've got about half an hour more questions to go, I'm afraid.
Half an hour?
Yeah, well, I can cut it down to 20 minutes, possibly. But
No,
if we took a break, I may be able to cut things out.
Well, I'm going to ask
But
the commander.
it is a cutting exercise.
It's getting on in the afternoon, and we all get tired at this end of the day. And you've been hanging around waiting to give evidence anyway. Would you prefer to stop now but come back tomorrow? Or would you prefer to carry on this evening with or without a short break now? Putting myself in your hands on this one.
Thank you. So clearly I'm here to help and assist the inquiry as much as I'm able. I could certainly do with a comfort break right now, if I may, please.
That's very reasonable, yes.
And then if we're able then to continue, then I think that would be good.
Okay.
But of course, if it's going to take, I want to give the very best answers that I can to help the inquiry. So if we need to come back tomorrow, then I'm very happy to do that.
Do you feel comfortable about going on this evening for, let's say, for half an hour?
Yes, I am.
Right. If you get to a point then when you feel you're getting too tired, and it can happen quite suddenly, you must indicate.
Thank you.
Well, then what we'll do is we'll have a just over 5-minute break. Is that long enough?
That'd be fine.
Yeah, 10 to 5, and then we'll see if Mr. Millett can get through in half an hour.
Thank you.
Oh, do you? Why is that?
For this reason, we are slightly concerned about certain questions being chopped, and it's just giving the appearance that it might be being rushed, and we prefer that appearance not to take place. There's been a suggestion that we might be able to cut some questions out.
No, I've made it clear to Mr. Millett. He said he thought he had half an hour, and I made it quite clear I'm not expecting him to cut down. Now, if he can't finish within the half an hour, I think we're going to have to stop anyway. But the commander's a very busy man. He's probably got other commitments, and although I'm sure he would come back tomorrow if he were asked to do so, he might prefer to finish tonight.
You understand the concern of my rates, though?
Well, you're absolutely right to say that it's important that there be no rush or no truncating of the questions. You don't have to persuade me about that. But I think we need to see how we can get on. All right? We're now going to break for just over 5 minutes, 10 to 5, and then we'll see where we go from there. All right?
I should just say, for Mr. Thomas's benefit, that none of the questions I was going to cut, so far as I know, come from him. They would be my own questions. So, but in any case, we will, I think, have the full time, so there'll be no cutting.
Commissioner, I'm sorry, come on, you go with the usher.
Thank you.
Please don't talk to anyone about your evidence when they're out of the room. All right? Thank you. Right, well, I'm going to rise for 5 minutes. I'm quite happy, Mr. Thomas, to make it quite clear to Mr. Millett and everyone else in the room that I'm not expecting him to trim his questioning in order to finish this evening. All right?
Can I just make it simple? It doesn't matter if it's my questions or not. The point is, it's the appearance. And I understand that Mr. Millett didn't intend that, but it's something that just had to be say?
Yeah, well, you've said it, and I hope I've made it clear that it's not going to result in any truncating of the questions. All right? Very good. Thank you very much. 10 to 5, please. All right, Commander, you happy to carry on for a bit?
Thank you. Yes, I am.
All right. As I say, if you feel you're getting too tired, just say and we'll
Thank
stop.
you.
Commander and Mr. Chairman, first of all, Commander, thank you very much for coming back to us. Mr. Chairman, I've had some discussions with various people, and looking at my notes, again, it may be sensible not to rush tonight because it's been a long day. I'm told, and Commander will correct me if I'm wrong, that he will be available to come back tomorrow morning to finish off his evidence, which will not take very long if need be. So rather than pushing on through the dark hours, it might be sensible to stop. But I will see how we go and finish at, say, 5:05 or 5:10.
Well, if you think you've got... The last time I asked you, you thought half an hour.
Yes, well...
But my own experience is that that's often a rather flexible estimate.
Yes.
Not just in your case, but in others as well. I think if we're not going to finish by 5:10, it would be wiser to stop now. Because if we've got to trouble Commander to come back again tomorrow, and I quite see that that is perhaps inevitable,
yes,
then we'd be better to stop at this point.
I think, on any view, we will not be able to finish by 5:10, including the break, in order for me to check my questions.
Of course.
So
all right,
it may be sensible to stop now.
That's as it is. Well, Commander, I'm sorry, we've got you back in to tell you we're not going to finish tonight after all. Which means I'm going to have to ask you to come back tomorrow morning. And hope not to detain you too long then, but at least I think we can give you a prompt start.
Thank you.
All right? It's very important, though, that you don't talk to anyone about your evidence.
Absolutely.
Once you leave the room.
Yes.
All right?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. At 10 o'clock tomorrow?
10 o'clock tomorrow will, I think, deal with it satisfactorily.
So back at 10 o'clock tomorrow, please.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, you go the usher if you would. Right, well then we'll stop at this point and resume tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock.
Indeed. There will be, I should just say, Mr. Chairman, there may be a very small knock-on effect in terms of Mr. Rawat's reading in of further residents' witness statements, but I hope that that can be accommodated without any further disturbance as well tomorrow.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. 10 o'clock tomorrow then, please. Thank you.